A dead car can still hold a room hostage. In a quiet garage, under dust and orange rust, someone stands over a machine that has not started in decades. The air smells like petrol, old vinyl, and metal. To most people, it is scrap. So why spend years and thousands of dollars bringing back something slower, less safe, and less practical than any modern car? Because sometimes the engine is not the thing being restored. Restoration begins with a decision. How much of the car should be brought back and how much should be left alone? At one end is preservation. The car is cleaned, stabilized, and protected, but the worn paint, cracked leather, factory welds, and faded badges stay. The goal is not to make it new. The goal is to stop time from doing more damage. Then comes mechanical recommissioning. The brakes are rebuilt, the fuel system is cleaned, the tires are replaced, and the engine is made safe to run. The car may still look tired, but it can move under its own power again. A sympathetic restoration goes further. Broken parts are repaired, missing trim is replaced, and the interior may be refreshed, while visible age is kept where it tells the truth. A full Concours restoration takes the opposite path. The car is stripped, measured, repainted, retrimmed, and rebuilt until it matches how it left the factory, sometimes down to hose clamps, stitching patterns, and inspection marks. Then there is the resto mod. The body may look old, but underneath are modern brakes, fuel injection, air conditioning, new suspension, and a stronger engine. It is history rebuilt for present-day roads. None of these choices are neutral. Original paint or a repaint, factory parts or upgrades, patina or perfection. Every restoration asks where value lives, in authenticity, usability, beauty, memory, or some uneasy mix of all four. Rust is usually the first thing that turns a dream project into a serious negotiation. It starts in the obvious places: bubbling paint around wheel arches, soft floor pans under the carpets, brown seams along the sills, and crust around the bottoms of doors. Then the car goes on a lift, and the real questions begin. Are the frame rails thin? Are the suspension mounts still solid? Has corrosion reached the inner structure where it cannot be seen from outside? That is why rust scares restorers. It is not just ugly, it is a bill hiding under paint. A small blister can lead to cutting, bracing, welding, fabrication, panel replacement, and hours spent trying to rebuild the shape the factory stamped decades earlier. Rust exposes every year the car was neglected, every damp garage, every shortcut repair, every winter road covered in salt. But rust is also evidence. It says the car was used. It sat through rainstorms outside restaurants, carried families down wet highways, survived muddy farm lanes, beach air, leaking windscreens, and long storage under a dusty cover. A rusty classic has not been sealed away from life. It has absorbed it. This is the strange bargain at the center of restoration. Rust destroys metal, weakens structures, and can decide whether a car is saved or scrapped. Yet many restorers are drawn to cars that show it, because corrosion proves the machine endured enough years to need rescuing in the first place. Petrol is where the restoration stops being a project and becomes a sensation. A modern car hides its work. You press a button, select drive, and the machine smooths away the noise, vibration, and effort. A classic asks for a sequence. Turn the key, pull the choke, let the fuel pump tick, touch the throttle just enough, then wait for the engine to catch, cough, stumble, and settle into idle. That moment feels less like activating a device and more like waking something that has been asleep. The carburetor needs air and fuel in the right mood. Cold oil has to move through narrow passages. The exhaust clears its throat. The whole car trembles slightly, telling you it is alive before it is ready. Driving it is not passive. The steering is heavier at low speed. The gear lever has a path you learn by feel. The clutch may bite high, low, or differently when hot. Brakes need pressure, not suggestion. Every sound matters. A ticking tappet, a flat spot under acceleration, a misfire that appears only when the engine is warm. Owners become fluent in these signals. They check oil because leaks are normal. They smell fuel and know whether it is rich running or something worse. They adjust timing, clean plugs, balance carburetors, and listen after every change. Now, that is the sensory addiction. A classic car does not simply transport you, it recruits you. It demands attention through your hands, ears, nose, and feet. And the more you participate, the harder it becomes to walk away. That attention often leads to something deeper than mechanics. Ask someone why they chose that exact car, and the answer rarely begins with horsepower. It begins with a person, a father who drove one to work, a mother who kept one spotless, an uncle who gave rides on summer evenings, a neighbour whose garage door opened just wide enough for a child to see chrome, vinyl, and possibility. Some restorers are rebuilding the first car they ever owned. Others are chasing the car they could not afford when they were young. A few are trying to recreate a model they saw in a film, at a racetrack, or parked outside a diner in a decade that now feels impossibly far away. The car becomes a container for details that ordinary memory loses. The pattern of the seat fabric, the smell of warm dust in the heater vents, the sound of a door shutting with a heavy metal click, the view over a long hood. These are not small things when they are tied to a voice, a place, or a version of yourself that no longer exists. That is why restoration can feel urgent. Rust is not only eating steel, time is eating the connection. Every repaired panel, every rebuilt gauge, every missing badge found online is a way of putting one more piece of the past back where it belongs. Many people say they are saving a car. Often, they are also saving the feeling it carried before it disappears. Then the bills start arriving. A classic car restoration can begin with a cheap shell on a trailer and become a second mortgage in slow motion. The purchase price is often the smallest number. Metalwork, paint, wiring, upholstery, engine machining, glass, trim, tires, tools, storage, and shipping can each become their own separate crisis. Many restorers learn this after the car is already apart. A fender that looked usable turns out to be full of filler. A floor pan crumbles under a screwdriver. An engine that was supposed to run when parked needs pistons, bearings, valves, and a machine shop with a 6-month waiting list. Then comes the parts hunt. Some pieces can be ordered in a few minutes. Others exist only in old barns, online auctions, estate sales, and boxes under tables at swap meets. A single missing bracket can stop an entire assembly. A wrong bolt can send someone searching through factory diagrams at midnight. That is where the obsession becomes visible. Restorers lose weekends to sanding. They spend evenings labeling wires in plastic bags. They tell themselves the car will be done by spring, then by summer, then by next year. Projects stall when money runs out, when life changes, when motivation disappears, or when the car becomes too painful to look at. The market usually does not rescue the decision. A person may spend $40,000 restoring a car that will sell for $25,000. Even a valuable model can swallow more money than it returns if the work is done correctly. Financially, many restorations make no sense at all, so people create another kind of economy around them. They trade knowledge, labor, parts, and encouragement. Forums preserve answers from strangers who solved the same problem 15 years ago. YouTube tutorials show how to rebuild a carburetor or align a door. Local garages know which machinist still understands old engines. Car clubs connect people who can identify a missing clip from a blurry photograph. At swap meets, someone will recognize a taillight bezel from across an aisle. In a home garage, a brother might hold a flashlight, a neighbor might lend a puller, and a retired mechanic might stop by for 10 minutes and stay for 3 hours. The car becomes a reason for people to gather around a difficult task. That matters, because without help, many restorations never leave the jackstands. With help, the impossible becomes a long list of smaller jobs. Now the dead-looking car from the beginning looks different. It is not scrap. It is a container for touch, sound, work, and memory. People restore classic cars because they make the past tangible. Thanks for watching. In the comments, tell us the car you would restore, or the one you wish you could see again.